Hey everybody, it's Michael from Wahoo Comics here with the first of a new video series that I'm calling Collector Spotlight. Something I find really interesting about comic collecting is that these stories that we read become a part of our personal stories. Of course, we spend a lot of time, energy, effort collecting the issues that we love, and they take on meaning to us. And so I want to start this series to give different collectors a chance to talk about their own story and why comics are important to them. And something else kind of related that I think is interesting is how comics bring our personal stories together. And so, for instance, my first guest here is Brion Draper, who recently moved into our neighborhood a few months ago. And earlier in the year, I noticed on his Facebook page that he had liked the page of our local comic book store. And so I reached out to him, sent him a message, and say, "Hey, do you collect comics, or do you just know the owner and trying to be nice and like their page for them?" And he sent me a message and let me know that, oh, he does collect comics. And he gave me a couple of good tips about some antique stores to check out, and I was able to get a good deal on a few issues there. And so I was excited about that. But we exchanged some messages there, and we've gotten together today and talked a little bit more about our hobby. And so I think it's really cool how comics bring people together. These stories, again, bring our own stories together. And so I'm happy to have Brion here. And first of all, just thank you for taking your time to interview with me and to put your collection here. I've got some neat things I know you're gonna show us today. But before you show off those things, why don't you tell us a little bit, how did you get into comic collecting to begin with?
All right, so I'm a crazy collector when I'm actually dressed like Archie in an outfit. So the way I got into it is about 12 years old. My parents bought me some comic books, one of them which was Archie, and I really enjoyed the Archie series because everything they do in it is just goofy and comedy and just a lot of laughs and fun, and I kind of see myself as a comedian. And so I could really relate to it, and it's not all about drugs and violence and just you know bad stuff. So it kind of molded me into who I am today, and really helped me out, to become a great person. And so over the years, when I first got my first job, I started buying my own comics, mostly at a comic book store. And so from there, I discovered eBay, which is dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's dangerous for all of us who are collecting.
Yeah, so there's just, billions of items on there. And something I like about Archie is the fact that they do cross series, and
Hmm.
they actually bring in movies, they bring in, comic strips from, your local newspapers, they bring in other, cartoons and, superheroes and different things. Something that you would probably like is the Archie versus Predator series,
Yeah.
which I have a piece of art here.
Oh, very cool. Tell us a little bit about this.
So Fernando Ruz is one of the top artists at Archie Comics, and this is some of his artwork. And he did this series, and at first it was just a one-off, and then they decided to do a whole series of about 6 comics of the Archie versus Predator, which is really cool. They've also gotten
And I see
into
this is signed, right? By
signed
him.
by
That's
him.
cool.
So I went to a comic book collection. That's how I first met him, and got him to sign that, and I purchased that from him.
It's awesome. And some of you have watched my last video. You might know I've recently got Predator #1, his first appearance in comics. So I think that is especially super cool. I love that character, and it's neat to hear how he crossed over to Archie.
Yeah, and I mean even Archie's Star Trek series. Dan Perrin, another top artist, signed that for me at the convention.
Wow.
And just whether it be old show or movie, or more up to things that just came out last year, they just do a lot of cross series, such as the Archie and
Well, one I just saw, I don't know if this is one you were talking about. We were talking about this earlier. I find this. I'm really interested in this because I grew up and still mostly collect Marvel comics, and so I know a lot about their universe. Know a little bit about DC Universe. I've collected some of their stuff, and occasionally I've gotten a comic from other universes, but very few. And so I know very little about the Archie universe. And so it's been cool to learn a little bit here, talking before shooting this video, and I'm looking forward to learning more as you share more today. And hopefully in the coming weeks as we talk more. But one you had mentioned that I had seen that I think you have the issue of. I just saw this on Craigslist a few weeks ago, Archie versus Punisher, which I thought was really fascinating because you mentioned one of the things that are really interesting about Archie to you, that doesn't have as much violence as some universes. Well, the Punisher, if you know anything about that hero or anti-hero, the same can't be said for him. And so it's kind of interesting to hear those universes come together.
Yeah, and yeah, like I own that issue, and it's funny because Archie is all comic and just very nice, and then he is just this like really tough guy that's straight serious and down to business. So it's kind of funny to see the two of them clash together.
Yeah, I hope I can borrow that from you sometime. I'm really interested to see how that story works itself out. Well, thanks for sharing those things. What are one or two other just stories that are special to you from collecting?
So one big one is my last year my wife became a public school teacher at Woodbrook Elementary. It's been her absolute dream job to be a public school teacher. She's had teaching jobs in the past, but this was an absolute dream. So about 2 months before Christmas, I reached out to Fernando and I said, hey, I'd really like if you could do an art piece for me for my wife. I gave him reference photos of her and of the school, and just in time, like I got it like a week before Christmas. Right here, I put it in a nice frame, and so it's Archie and Betty just congratulating her and cheering for her, making it. So that's the actual school and everything in the background. That's the colors cool. And logo and everything. And he made that for her. Congratulate her on it. So that's a big memory.
I'm not even an Archie collector, but I'm jealous at such a personalized item. That's really cool.
Yeah. This one I recently got. It's an Archie bust. For each character, the artist Rocco Tardamila, he sculptured one of each character, and there's only 600 of these in the world that were created. This is number 560. I only own the Archie one for right now. I got to collect the other ones, but they're impossible to find because there's only 600 of each. Yeah. So you'd have to find that one that just happens to get listed out there.
Sure.
And so one of my biggest things is I was in an antique store, one that I had told you about to check out, this giant one, and I came across this box, and I had no idea what it was. It was in a glass case with a key where I had to ask the front desk to let me see it. Cost $100, and so I started flipping through it, and there's comic books in there, but there was like schoolwork. And there was like different exams and questions, and there was like tracings, and I'm like, what is this thing? So I called Victor Gorlick, the president of Archie Comics, and told him what I have, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So in the New York public school system, many years ago, is what this kit was, and so this was a kit to the teachers. And the students would read the comics, and then they would take an exam about it, from memory, what they remember from the comic to help you, with memory. And then tracing, if they wanted to do the artwork, they could actually do these like thin little line tracings to create their own artwork and their own characters. So, I guess a lot of these got thrown out or something because they're absolutely impossible to find. For a couple of years, I looked and I came across one more, snatched that up. These are kit. I have two of these, one full, one partial, but this is kit B. There is a kit A, and to this day, for years, I have not even seen a photo of it. Like, it's I think it's a myth. Just
sure, yeah,
I can't find it anywhere. But it's cool because Archie Comics corporate and in their museum doesn't even have a copy of this.
Wow, that's awesome. So you have something Archie Corporation doesn't have itself of its own characters. That's cool.
Absolutely. And another thing with Fernando is, he's sent me a lot of stuff from his desks at work, and from his home, and just original pencil drawings of different series coming up and things that he's sketching out. Now, some of these went into production, some of these didn't. He did, ones like this that just, show a sketch of, trying to model and figure out how to make each scene. I even have ones in here from, so they have writers at Archie Comics, and they'll basically send him, a story in here of different pages, and about what the comic's going to be about. And so he takes that and has to figure out how to create the actual artwork from the stories that were written. So he's got all kinds of notations and stuff in here, but this isn't something that you can just go out and buy. This is, he either trashes them or keeps them himself. He doesn't go out and sell this stuff.
Yeah, that's really awesome. To have, so it's personalized things, and to have a connection with one of the creators, one of the artists. Yeah, how did you connect with him to begin with?
So my wife and I, back when we were dating, we went to a comic book collection, and Dan Parent and Fernando Ruz was there. They also had a writer there too, and I just really connected with Fernando. He runs an art school, and he's a very nice, genuine guy, and just very personable, and I just really connected with him, and so I wanted to stay friends with him. So I ended up, first, finding his Facebook, and then we talked. He remembered us from the convention, and I was talking to the other writer there, and just kind of became friends. And we talked a little bit about Archie's, and then the school that he runs is the school that he was actually taught how to draw. So the school that he went to become an artist, he is actually now head of that school and running the school and teaching people, under him how to draw Archie comics and the other comics that he draws.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, you've already shown us a lot of neat things. There are a couple other things you want to highlight in your collection. We're going to try to do a kind of a quick, run around with the camera at the end of the interview. But there's lots of neat stuff here. What's one or two other things that you especially like?
The best thing about Archie Comics is some people feel it's, for kids, but it's really not, because they touch on everything from young children. They even did a Archie baby series where all the Archie comic collectors are in diapers and, like little kids. But, all the stuff like, Predator and things like that, sure, that's more adult, that, even from teenagers up to, people in their 50s would really enjoy. And a lot of their stuff is, elderly people still enjoy them because, they're from the 1940s is when it was created, and some people back then that were kids, still love it today. But they do things like this is kind of cool. It's a shaving kit. So when little boys, they envy their dad, or they watch their dad shave in the bathroom, and even though it's a fake, it's not a real razor, they could do the same thing. And then they always, boys and girls both, they always do a little bit of each. So then, with the girls, they have hair dryers and brushes and things like that. Now, they could either do it to their own hair, or they also made a lot of dolls, so you could, act like you're blow drying a doll's hair. They've had a lot of campaigns. This is the National Safe Kids campaign. Everything in here is about safety, but they're trading cards, but they actually have a message about how to keep kids safe and things like that. So there's a lot of campaigns that they make. And jelly jars, you go out and buy some grape jelly, and you keep the glass it came in because it's got all the Archie comic characters painted on it. And so they just, and the cool thing about it is it's not just like Archie comic number 1, 2, 3. They got Betty and Veronica, they got Jughead, they got, sure, Reggie, they got they also got Tales from Riverdale, which is like mysteries and like weird phenomenons. And so there's just literally like 100 spin-offs of that. Also have one more item that I actually forgot to tell you
Okay,
about,
yeah,
which
well,
is
all
a
right.
one of a
I'll be
kind.
surprised with you. Okay, all right, cool.
So this was impossible to get, and I paid a high price for this.
Sure.
But Archie Comics, they had a cartoon series on TV that ran through several seasons, and this is an actual manuscript from 1976, and this had each of the episodes, run times and who was going to be in the episode, and it's actually the who's going to be the voiceover and the actual who says what on it, freeze frame, and it just goes through, and it's like an entire season. This is what the voice actors all had, and they had to
Wow.
read from the script,
Yeah.
to create the series. And I also have what you'll see is animation cells. So back then they had to hand paint every single cell to create that animation. So one episode could have 5,000 cells because it would be like a freeze frame where each frame would be a slightly different than the last, almost like a stop motion where
Sure. Yeah.
things like that. So I own a couple of cells, but to just actually have the manuscript that was that the actors all read from is incredible.
Yeah, that is really awesome. And something is part of your collection that it's a little part of my collection, but not nowhere on the scale of this is obviously, comic collectors collect the comics, which is most of what I get, but there's also a lot of memorabilia that, is connected to all these characters. And it is, yeah, certainly super impressive what you have around. And again, we're going to try to do a quick show around in a little bit. I know you said this is only part of your collection also. There's
Yeah.
even more still in storage.
Yeah.
But, thank you so much for, again, taking the time and the effort to share a little bit of your story and show us some really cool things. And I know you have your own YouTube channel as well, and I'm going to put a link in the description if anyone is interested in checking that out. But can you share a little bit about what your channel is about?
Yeah, so Brion's Investments is a finance channel. It's about passive income, making money while you sleep. Some people think it's a myth, but it's really not, because some of the most successful people on the planet have multiple streams of income. If you can get up to 7, that's really, really good. I'm still working on that. But if you think about it, if you put money into the stock market and then in a day or a week, it goes up 10%, well, you just made 10% by doing absolutely nothing and just letting your investment grow. So I have a private ATM business. So when people use the ATM, the surcharge, I get that small fee of the surcharge, and just like once a month I go and refill the ATM, and I do nothing. So basically, it's passive income is all about doing a little bit of work and then just reaping the rewards by doing little to no work. And so you can follow along with me, and the investments that I'm doing. I'm starting to get into furniture flipping and things like that. Buying a piece for $10, doing a little bit of work, flipping it for $50. And so you can kind of just see what I'm doing and adapt it yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for. Yeah, I find investments really interesting. A big part of what brought me back into comics this year was the idea of investing. And so just like you're flipping with furniture, I've been flipping comic books, buying low, selling high, and then using the profit to buy blue chip issues that I hope to hold on to forever, that, yeah, passively will just increase in value over time. So thanks again. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, of course, it'd be a big help if you do so. Like the video, comment, tell us what are some cool things from your collection, or if you'd be interested in sharing your story. I'd love to set something up with my audience, and we can do a virtual chat if you don't live close by, or just let us know what do you think about this new video series. What are some other cool things you would have, questions you would have wanted to know. So thanks again, and until next time, this is Michael from Wahoo Comics. Of other cool memorabilia. There's some of the jelly jars and some figures over here, and all these bins are just tons of Archie comics. Really cool stuff. Here's some of the stuff he shared with us. Here's a cool issue, Soupy Sales, that crossover that he showed me earlier, and here's some Funko Pop toys that are signed by the Riverdale cast.